The story starts with a boy named Ray White at a sad funeral, and it's raining. To comfort Ray, a girl hugs him tightly from behind to make him feel better. Later, Ray sees his friend Hope and some others getting killed, and it really scares him. He loses control of himself, and then, all of a sudden, he releases a huge burst of power that causes a big explosion. Some girls who were watching from far away also noticed this immense, uncontrollable power coming from Ray. A few years later, Ray got an invitation to go to Arnold Magic Academy. He stood outside the academy, lost in thought, holding the invitation card. While he was looking at the paper, he accidentally bumped into a girl and quickly held her hand to stop her from falling. This made the girl turn red with embarrassment, and she and her two friends admired Ray for being so polite. The girl with braided hair was named Wanda Erica. Before, the girls used to really like Ray, but their admiration disappeared when other students started gossiping about him. Even though Ray came from an average family, he still graduated from the academy successfully. This made the girls distance themselves from him and even say mean things about him, especially Wanda. She was so upset at the thought of an ordinary person touching her that she immediately let go of Ray's hand and kept her distance. But that's not the whole story. Some upset boys came up to Ray, including a boy named Albert Alium and his friends. At first, Ray thought Albert would be friendly, but he soon realized that Albert was treating him poorly because he came from a lower social group. According to Albert, only nobles were supposed to go to the Arnold Magic Academy, and there was no room for regular people like Ray. He thought the school was only for rich and important people, and people with less money like Ray shouldn't be there. After that, Albert and his two friends continued to say mean things to Ray, but Ray stayed calm and explained that he was there to study science. Then a popular girl named Amelia showed up and stopped the argument. She came from a well-known noble family at the Arnold Magic Academy, and the three boys quickly left when she arrived. Soon after, she went over to Ray, and they started getting to know each other. This was a big deal because Ray was the first regular person to ever get into the Arnold Magic Academy, and it got a lot of attention from the other students. Later, all the students gathered in a big room where Abby, one of the teachers, gave them instructions on how to become the best magic users in the world. Amelia then spoke on behalf of the students, giving a speech to encourage her classmates and showing herself as a strong woman who some students looked up to. After the speech, they all went to their classrooms with their friends. Later on, Ray decided to introduce himself to his new classmate. However, when he did, he noticed that their faces looked annoyed and unfriendly because he was from a lower social group. But Ray didn't let their reaction bother him, and he confidently introduced himself to the whole class. His teacher, Helena, gave him a warm welcome. Even though the teacher had warned Ray about how his classmates might treat him, he didn't let it bother him. To everyone's surprise, Amelia, one of the popular girls, warmly welcomed Ray in front of everyone, not caring about his social status. When the class was about to start, Ray's thoughts drifted away, and the teacher scolded him for it. Helena then asked Amelia to explain the various levels of magic: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and the Grand Holy rank. At the Arnold Magic Academy, they use these 5 levels to categorize magic, and Amelia talked briefly about each one. Then, the teacher revealed that there were 7 legendary witches in the past, but no one knew who they were. Everyone was surprised when the teacher announced that Abby was one of those 7 great witches. While the teacher was talking about magic, Albert suddenly asked why regular people were even allowed into the Arnold Magic Academy if they wanted to become one of the 7 greatest witches. In response, the teacher seemed annoyed and explained that all students had to go through the same entrance exam and interview process to get into the academy. Then the teacher told the students to practice their magic. Amelia was able to perform the techniques the teacher taught perfectly, impressing the other students.
Of course it's magnificent. She hails from a noble family.
However, Albert seemed to still be upset with Ray, and some students talked behind his back because he couldn't use magic. After class, Ray walked around and saw a girl named Elisa going into the library. He asked if she wanted to join him, and they quickly became friends. Elisa wanted to read a book about magic materials written by Dr. Ainsworth, because she wanted to be a doctor herself. Ray also liked Dr. Ainsworth and suggested the book to her. Elisa was excited to find someone who shared her interest in the author, and they both were part of a fan group called Ainser. While they talked, Ray noticed how lovely Elisa was and told her not to hide her ears. He encouraged her to feel confident about her looks because she blushed when someone complimented her. During this time, Elisa really liked being around Ray because he acted mature. Then he remembered some advice he got from Harvard, and they said goodbye, each going back to their own rooms. But as Ray was heading back to his dorm room, he got stopped by another boy who didn't seem too happy about him being at the school. These two boys started flexing their muscles to show how strong they were. After that, they shook hands and became friends. Later, Ray decided to go for a run around the school's grounds and bumped into Rebecca Bradley, a senior from a fancy family. They said hi and chatted until they became good friends. Afterward, Evie invited Ray to go to class together, but Ray asked Evie to go ahead because he had something to take care of. While walking down the street, he accidentally bumped into a girl with pigtails. At first, she was mad at him, but after he showed off his impressive skills, she got interested in him. The girl introduced herself as Clarice Cleveland, but Ray didn't recognize her noble family name. Clarice was disappointed when Ray didn't recognize her noble family name, but Ray explained that he grew up in a village and didn't know much about nobility. Later, Ray met Abby in his room, and they both turned out to be former soldiers. They shared stories about their past experiences in the military. Afterward, Ray returned to the training field to begin his practical lessons. During his training, Ray had a sword fight with Albert. Before Albert could even attack, his sword broke. Ray managed to corner him until he was defeated. In the audience, Evie and Amelia talked about Ray's impressive sword skills, which were as strong as the world's top swordsman. From a distance, Abby watched the students compete with each other. She was really excited to see Ray, who was secretly a very skilled ice sword magician, making progress as a student. Later that day, Ray and Evie practiced together in their dorm room, pushing themselves to their limits. It seemed like Ray was interested in joining the club that Evie had recommended. The next day, when Ray walked into the club room, he was surprised to see a strong, tough-looking man with big muscles and veins. Even though it was called the Environmental Research Club, the members seemed pretty intimidating as they eagerly talked about their plans to explore forests, icebergs, and other well-known places. However, the club president reminded everyone that using violence was not an appropriate way to intimidate others. Before Ray decided to join the club, they gave him some rules to follow. At first, the club leader didn't think much of Ray because he looked skinny and didn't seem to meet their standards. Other members also began to doubt his abilities. However, they were all surprised when Ray opened his shirt and showed off his muscles. The club leader and the others were amazed by how strong he was. The leader even asked if Ray had a license card like his. Ray showed his Gold Hunter license card, impressing everyone. At that moment, the other members were really impressed with Ray, even though he seemed like an ordinary person. The club president stood up and said that Ray would be an important part of the Environmental Research Club. Soon after, the two strong and muscular men shook hands. Ray wanted to join the plant club, so he went to the girls' club and asked Rebecca, who was the leader, if he could join. However, the club members didn't like the idea and felt he wasn't good enough. Once again, they weren't sure if he had the skills. But then Rebecca decided to test Ray and had a girl named Dina evaluate him. If he didn't meet their standards, he would be kicked out of the club. Afterward, Dina took Ray to a garden that was full of grass but no flowers. She told Ray to remove all the unwanted plants from there. She gave him 1 week to do this task. Ray started by pulling out the weeds from the ground. On the first day, he got rid of half of them. By the second day, he had completely cleared the garden of weeds. On the third day, Ray decided to make some flower stands. While he was busy with that, Rebecca came over with some snacks. They chatted about what they had been doing in school. During their conversation, Rebecca mentioned that there was going to be a magic chevalier competition at school, and that the students were practicing for it. Ray was curious and asked her what that was, as the name sounded strange to him. Rebecca then explained to Ray that Magic Chevalier was a competition to find the strongest magic sword fighter, and she asked if he wanted to come and watch. Ray said he would think about it first. While they were talking, Rebecca saw Ray's strong muscles and asked if she could feel them. Ray confidently said yes, and Rebecca was really pleased and impressed by his strength. But some girls in the background started to complain because they thought it was wrong for someone like Ray, who wasn't from the noble elite, to interact with them. Later, Dina and her friends saw the work that Ray had done in the garden and said he had passed the test. Rebecca then told her club members to start planting flowers on the land. After finishing their club activities, Ray walked alone in the schoolyard and remembered a message from Abby about spies in the Empire. He had a mission to find these spies, and there was a chance they might be at the Magic Academy where he was studying. Abby had told him to keep this mission a secret. While Ray was lost and thought about the mission, he suddenly noticed Clarice hiding behind a bush. Ray said hello to Clarice, and she seemed surprised. He asked her why she was crouching behind the bushes all by herself. Clarice then confessed that she loved insects but felt weird about it because it wasn't common among nobility. So she had to be secretive whenever she saw insects in the schoolyard. Ray then revealed that he also had an interest in insects and reassured her that it was okay. He offered to tell her about different types of insects if she was interested. At first, she acted like she didn't want to hear, but then she blushed and said she would listen to Ray's insect stories another time. Shortly after, Ray walked into the classroom. When it was time for the lesson to start, the teacher asked him about the different types of magic. Ray confidently explained the details of magic to his friends, and the teacher confirmed that he was right. Then the teacher suggested that the students form study groups, and Evie invited Ray to join her group. Ray agreed, and they asked Elisa to join them too. At first, Elisa was hesitant because she thought she might be a burden, but Ray convinced her to join their group, and she happily agreed. She also sought guidance from Evie, who had already welcomed her into the group. To their surprise, Amelia offered to join Ray's group, and he welcomed her, saying he had already set up a special place for her from the start. Then the teacher gave her students a practice test in the wilderness, specifically in the Kafta forest, where they would have a pretend exam. The goal of the test was to defeat monsters and get stamps from the academy. If a student didn't pass the test, they would have to try again the next year. At that time, Ray's group was very excited and talked enthusiastically about their plans. Ray was familiar with exploring the forest because he grew up in a nearby village. As they went on their journey, they seemed like a close-knit group. Before long, they came across an insect monster, which Elisa accidentally found. Ray quickly jumped into action and defeated the monster with one powerful strike. They found the stamp they needed, and their adventure continued smoothly. During the night, Ray and his friends gathered around a campfire and shared stories. The girls were impressed by his brave actions and praised him for it. Then Evie said she relied on him, and everyone was curious about why Amelia, an elite noble, wanted to be part of Ray's group. To their surprise, Amelia had explained that she didn't like the caste system and was okay with joining Ray's group. This made Elisa happy, and Amelia started joking with her, and they became friends. Later, when everyone was asleep, Ray couldn't stop thinking about the forest he had explored earlier. To him, the forest was much more fascinating than a battlefield. He remembered what his teacher had told him in the military, that even though he wanted a normal school life, his true identity would eventually be revealed. These thoughts left Ray uncertain about what the future held for him. The very next day, Ray and his group were getting ready for their journey when they heard someone yelling for help. Ray quickly ran in the direction of the shout and found Albert and his friends under attack by a huge monster. Ray acted fast, cutting down the beast in one strike and saving Albert.
How is he moving so fast?
But to his surprise, Albert got mad and said he didn't need help. Shortly after, Amelia and her friends arrived, and Ray asked Elisa and Evie to help free one of Albert's friends who was stuck in a tree trunk. That's when Amelia noticed the motionless monster and started wondering about Ray's true identity. Before Ray could answer, the monster suddenly came back to life. Out of nowhere, someone from behind a tree used various kinds of magic to revive the beast, and now Ray and Amelia were facing an angry monster. Then Ray showed his incredible fighting skills as he battled the monsters, with Amelia, Evie, and Elisa helping him. When Elisa got scared, she held on to Amelia, who encouraged her and praised her for assisting Ray and Evie in defeating the monsters. During this moment, Evie was really excited and hugged Ray, and he was happy to be back with his friends. Eventually, their group successfully got rid of the monsters and received stamps for their victory. But Elisa was tired, so Ray carried her, and Amelia joined too. Later, all the students gathered in the field after finishing their exams, and Ray's group was declared the best. Unfortunately, Wanda didn't agree with this because Ray had crossed out Amelia's name. Afterwards, the regular students started supporting the elite nobles, which made Wanda's group angry. Evie noticed that their group wasn't very welcome because of Ray, but Ray wasn't bothered by it. He was happy that he and his friends had completed their mission and survived. But Albert didn't like how Ray was becoming more popular, while Amelia was happy because they had achieved their mission's goal. She expressed her dislike for the elite nobles. At the same time, Lydia was eagerly waiting for Ray, and Carla welcomed her when she arrived. Carla then took him to Lydia's room, where they talked about the past, shared drinks and snacks. They also discussed Ray's injured hand, and Lydia said it would take 5 years to fully heal. However, if he was in a tough situation, he could use his magic. Then, she revealed that Ray was the heir to her ice magic. After that, Lydia told Ray that something strange was happening among witches recently. He was curious and asked Lydia to explain. Normally, she ignored unimportant and boring rumors, but this time she got involved. The topic was engram, which confused Ray. Lydia had explained that engram is like a code in every magic spell, and is a crucial part of magic research. However, Lydia's research was not about magic codes. It focused on the human brain. She believed that magic comes from the human brain, and used the dual code theory to explain it. Then she showed an invitation letter from a group of witches called Psycho. This group thought that any method was okay for their research. She wanted Ray to help stop this group of unethical researchers who weren't following the rules. After their serious talk, Ray and Lydia took a walk. While walking, Lydia asked Ray if he had any friends at the academy, and he said he had good friends with him. She then asked him to introduce her to his friends, and she was happy to see him smile again. They also talked about the upcoming magic sword competition that would involve 3 academies. Lydia mentioned that she had been the champion of the competition for several years in a row, and even showed Ray her past records when she won. Later, while jogging, Ray ran into Elisa, who was about to leave. He offered to walk with her, and she blushed at his offer.
Sorry to keep you.
Oh. Why did you change your clothes?
After getting ready, they went to grab some food together, and Clarice saw them from behind a wall. Despite her initial hesitation, she decided to join them, and Ray invited her to have a meal with them. When they reached the restaurant, Ray introduced the 2 girls, and they all had a great time together, enjoying the compliments they received. After a fun outing, Ray escorted both girls back to the academy. On their way, they saw Amelia getting out of a horse-drawn carriage, and Ray greeted her, curious about what she had been doing. She explained that she had just come from a meeting with elite nobles, but she didn't really enjoy being around royalty. They talked about the upcoming magic sword competition, and as usual, Ray complimented Amelia's beautiful outfit. However, Amelia changed the subject and asked where he had been earlier. Ray told her he had been at a cafe with Elisa and Clarice, but Amelia didn't seem pleased with him spending time with other girls. She then asked him to go shopping with her. At the mall, Amelia tried on different stylish clothes, and Ray complimented her on how good she looked in all of them. But when she went to change in the locker room, she found insects there and got scared. She accidentally hugged Ray, forgetting that she hadn't put on her dress yet, before quickly going back to the locker room to finish changing. After a while, Ray and Amelia returned to the academy. Back there, he had a meeting with his teacher in his classroom. The teacher was worried about Ray's well-being at the academy, because counter students sometimes get bullied. Ray reassured the teacher that he had good friends and hadn't been mistreated. He felt thankful that his teacher cared about him and offered to help if needed. Meanwhile, Albert was filled with anger and a desire for revenge as he practiced magic in the forest with the guidance of a mysterious figure. As for Ray, he's currently training with some strong guys. After the practice, Evie invited him for some refreshing drinks, but he declined, saying he had something else to do. Earlier, Dina had given Ray the key to the club room, and he went there. When he entered, he accidentally saw Rebecca changing her clothes. She screamed in fright, but Ray stayed calm and quickly closed the door. Inside, Ray took responsibility for accidentally seeing Rebecca changing and apologized to her. Even though she said it was okay, she still blushed. They then talked about plants, and Rebecca showed Ray a book about different plant types, which she knew a lot about. She was happy to have someone interested in learning about plants, since other club members had been avoiding her because she was an elite noble. Ray promised to always ask her for help, which made her very happy. Meanwhile, the battle arena was shown, where Amelia was fighting her opponent in the magic sword night competition. Albert and his 2 friends looked down on the other students in the competition, thinking they were amateurs with no skills. After defeating her opponent, Amelia challenges Ray to a competition, even though Evie has doubts because Ray is a commoner. The group of girls gets upset because they see Amelia as their leader and don't understand why she would challenge him. During the competition, Ray sees Amelia as the leader she used to be and almost instinctively uses the legendary ice sword magic. But he manages to control his magic and stop the fight. So, Emilia wins the duel. Soon after, Ray and his friends have a meal together in the cafeteria, where they're amazed by the incredible technique Ray used. Ray praises his great and strong teacher to his friends, who listen with admiration. But their conversation is interrupted when Albert and his friends suddenly show up. Albert challenges Ray to a sword duel, and being a true man, Ray accepts. As they reached the battle arena, Clarice noticed that it was enclosed by a barrier, making Ray's friends worry that Albert might be up to something unfair. Ray asked him about the rules of the match, but Albert said there were no rules, and they'd be using real swords. This made his friends anxious and scared, but Ray remained calm and unafraid of Albert. Meanwhile, a mysterious person watched their fight from a nearby tree. It was evident that Albert was driven by revenge and anger, and he seemed determined to harm Ray right there. Ray began to realize that darkness was taking over Albert's heart, making him even more dangerous. Shortly after, the story reveals Albert's past and his noble family, where his father is a prominent figure. Albert is ambitious and aims to become the best among the elite nobles. However, when he sees Ray as an obstacle to his goals, he becomes consumed with anger and decides to remove Ray from the academy. Despite Albert using powerful magic, his efforts prove futile, and Ray easily defeats him, causing Albert to lose control of himself. This makes Ray's friends suspicious and want to know who he really is. Before Ray can explain, the audience is suddenly hit by a gravitational magic attack that immobilizes them, even affecting Albert. Then a mysterious person appears and reveals herself as Miss Helena, the same teacher who had been concerned about Ray. It becomes clear that Miss Helena is not who she seems. Ray figures out that she is part of an organization called eugenics and is after engrams and witch brains. He also realizes that she intentionally trapped them in the Kafta forest and sent wild monsters to attack the students. Mother Master, with a cunning look on her face, confesses to all her actions, including manipulating Albert's anger towards Ray. On the other hand, Ray felt intense anger towards Helena when he realized that she wasn't being kind, but was after engrams and witch brains. She attacked him with powerful fire magic and extended her assault to Ray's defenseless friends. Remembering Li Dia's advice about using ice magic in emergencies, Ray decided to show his strength and ability. He used his ice magic to freeze the area and protect his friends from Helena's fire attacks. During this moment, Helena was astonished by his skill in using legendary ice sword magic. She was even more surprised to discover that an ordinary student like Ray possessed such rare knowledge. Ray explained that he had learned this magic from his teacher, Li Dia, who had passed down the knowledge to him. As Helena continued to attack, Ray's ice sword effectively blocked most of her attacks. Realizing she was about to lose, Helena chose to retreat from the arena. Ray chased after Helena, and in the process, she injured her leg. She begged for mercy, but Ray couldn't let her escape. He planned to hand her over to the authorities. Helena tried to trap him with her fire magic, but Ray anticipated her moves and easily dodged the attack, which left her terrified by his strength. In a desperate move, Helena used her research to inject a substance into Ray's brain, turning herself into a powerful monster. However, Ray remained fearless and used the S-Knight's sword to battle the monstrous Helena. She launched attacks at him and asked how he managed to evade her deadly strikes. Ray explained the complexities of his ice sword magic. Even as Helena attacked him, Ray boldly explained the differences between fire and ice magic and why she couldn't defend against his attacks. But she refused to accept his lecture, seeing herself as the teacher. Helena then explained that the key difference was in the codes controlling molecular vibrations, either speeding them up or slowing them down. Ray agreed with her and clarified that ice magic was a way to slow down these vibrations. He mentioned that many witches use this technique unconsciously. Ray demonstrated his skill by precisely manipulating ice, making it strong enough to withstand attacks. He achieved this by using anti-codes to twist the traditional code theory in his magic. However, Helena didn't accept his theory about anti-codes and admitted she didn't fully understand it. This made Helena very angry, and she began using dark magic, a type of mental attack. Ray's friends, including Emilia, Elisa, Evie, and Clarice, became concerned about her behavior and sensed the darkness in her. Despite the challenges, Ray managed to freeze himself and avoid Helena's attacks. He skillfully defended against her moves, although his own magic was so strong that it caused him to bleed. Eventually, he used a new technique involving a snow attack to encase Helena in an ice crystal. Albert was impressed by Ray's power and watched from a different perspective. Ray then suggested that Helena take a break and rest in an ice shackle adorned with red roses. Afterward, Ray used a disengagement spell to return his body to its normal state. Soon, Analia and her friends rushed to his side as he began to lose consciousness. Ray was grateful that he could protect his friends and thanked Lydia for teaching him the technique. The end then took us back in time when Ray first met Lydia. He was just a child, and he had gotten hurt. Lydia quickly brought him to the soldier's tent to get help. The two girls in the tent were curious about who the child was. One of them even thought Ray might be Lydia's child. The major, too, wanted to know about the child's background. Lydia explained that she had found him in the battle arena. However, Abby and Lydia started arguing about whether Ray should stay in their tent. Abby wasn't too happy about him being there. During this conversation, Lydia mentioned that Ray was very polite, especially considering he was an orphan. But Abby and Lydia had different views. Abby talked about the code theory and how it has caused disagreements among wizards. Code theory has become a part of the magic system, and further research could reveal more about the world. Abby believed that superstitions were related to human beliefs, while Lydia felt that superstitions were mostly ceremonial in the modern era. After that, Lydia hurried to check on Ray, and Carol noticed that he had woken up, but he didn't say anything. With time, Ray started getting used to his new environment, and they would visit him often in the tent. They were both eager to look after the young boy. One evening, Abby and Lydia talked about Ray's situation. Lydia thought Abby might suggest that Ray had found parents who wanted to adopt him, but instead, Abby asked if Lydia would think about adopting him herself. Suddenly, Lydia felt unsure about agreeing to the soldier's proposal, unlike Carol, who was more than willing to take Ray under her care. Carol had even gone to the mayor to request permission to adopt Ray, but the major and his assistant were not in favor of her plan. To get different perspectives on the situation, the major asked for Abby's opinion. She confidently said that it wouldn't be possible for soldiers to adopt a child. Then the major turned to Lydia for her input. Lydia stood up and talked to Ray. She asked Ray for his thoughts, and he told her that he wanted to be close to her. This conversation led her to decide that Ray should live with his relatives, and they would officially adopt him. Carol was overjoyed with this decision and immediately hugged Ray. Lydia made it clear that Ray was now a part of their extended family and also became her student. In short, 6 months had gone by, and Ray had joined the war, using the ice sword magic Lydia had taught him. One day, Lydia noticed something strange about the use of magic on the battlefield. She had discussed with her friends how using too much magic could harm one's mind and damage the battlefield. During a meeting in their tent, they talked about the increasing violence in the battle and the risk to the astral troops. The major and Harvard both asked Ray not to participate in the battle. But Ray felt loyal to Lydia and his family and insisted on fighting. Harvard promised to protect him. Tragically, Harvard died in battle, and Ray couldn't save him. Lydia then urged Ray to stay away from the battlefield, but before he passed away, Harvard encouraged Ray to keep pursuing his dreams. Now in the present, Ray wakes up and sees Abby and Lydia beside him. Shortly after, Lydia gently touched Ray's head and then left, with Carla mentioning that Lydia genuinely cared about him. Afterwards, Abby told Ray about how Lydia had persuaded her to let him attend the academy, despite initial concerns about their different social classes. As Abby was about to go, she and Lydia both expressed their wish for Ray to enjoy his teenage years to the fullest. Ray was deeply touched by Abby's heartfelt advice and couldn't help but cry tears of gratitude. Meanwhile, Lydia was overwhelmed with emotion and cried intensely in front of Carla, thankful that Ray was safe. Later, Amelia and her friends came to visit Ray. During their visit, Ray opened up to his 4 friends and revealed that he was one of the 7 legendary witches. He felt lonely and unsure. But then, Evie approached him, saying, "We're friends, right?" Even Clarice, who often looked prumpy, seriously said they were friends too. Elisa joined in, declaring that they were all friends. Ray was relieved to finally have friends who accepted him at the academy. That night, as Ray was lying down, his friend Albert came to visit him. Ray was surprised and asked why he came in the middle of the night. Albert admitted his mistake and apologized to Ray for his previous behavior. Ray accepted the apology and forgave him. Albert was curious about Ray's strength and asked for advice. Ray advised him to have more self-confidence, which gave Albert a sense of enlightenment and a desire to change for the better. The next day, Abby introduced a new teacher named Carol to the class